Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. Do not be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed. The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force, or of the year 2020, which has been absolute garbage so far. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and I woke up a little bit ago. So any of you guys who are familiar with my YouTube channel know that I have this pretty deep voice when I first wake up. It will change as we go on through the video, the more that I talk. But we're covering the secret origin of death metal, right? This is technically Superboy Prime versus the Batman Who Laughs, but it's really, really cool, right? It's a really, really amazing story. So what we really, I wouldn't really even say that we lack anything. What we would normally do insofar is kind of like doing a bit of a breakdown about Superboy Prime before we actually start the story. We don't need to do because it gets covered in the story. And that really makes a lot of sense given the fact that Superboy Prime hasn't shown up in DC Comics for quite some time. And there is a little bit of a refresher that's needed for people who are getting into the character for the very first time, because a lot of people know the character by name. They're aware of Superboy Prime, the power he possesses. He's probably the strongest version of Superman that we've seen in any of the Crisis events, minus, you know, the one that adapts to everybody's powers and like a few exceptions here and there. But in terms of like the mainline Supermen who come from Krypton and that kind of a thing, he's usually considered to be the most powerful. They don't really know the history of the character. And so because of that, we get a little bit of an explanation here. One of the things that does get left out is the nature of Krypton, in the sense that this basically takes place on Earth Prime. And Earth Prime is essentially DC's stand-in for the real world, right? So like our world, where you're watching this video and all that kind of good stuff. But the whole idea behind this is that this guy, Clark Kent, had basically come from Krypton here in the real world. The difference is that unlike DC Comics and almost any other universe where Krypton explodes, in his universe, Krypton's destroyed by the sun. And the result of that is that there is no kryptonite from the Earth Prime universe, right? Kryptonite comes from the planet Krypton, shards that were either found in space or landed on Earth, and that's how Superman gets his weakness to green kryptonite. The reality is that here, there is no kryptonite anywhere in the universe, and so the result is that Superboy Prime does not have a weakness to kryptonite because it doesn't exist. Presumably if it did, he would. But the other counterpart to this, or the other component to this, is that kryptonite from other dimensions, other universes, does not work on Superboy Prime, so he has no inherent immunity to kryptonite in any form or fashion. It's one of the things that really bolsters his power. Now, in this moment, he's kind of in a local comic book store, just kind of reading comics, and then some guys show up on him and start giving him a hard time, making fun of him because he likes Superman. What kind of an idiot makes fun of somebody because they like Superman? At this point, like, these guys, right, this kid Braverman basically ends up ripping up the comic book that Clark Kent's reading, and then in turn, they're just gonna start beating the crap out of him, right? I don't know why you beat somebody up for liking comics, but you know, this was the 1980s. Things were a little bit different back then. But then Lori comes out of nowhere, basically splashes water on him, and is like, my mom owns a drugstore. You guys are banned for life. Now, Lori was the love interest. When Superboy Prime originally showed up in DC Comics back in the day, Lori was his love interest. And by all standards of measurement, she was essentially his lowest lane, right? She was the counterpart to him, right? The character that would go on, they'd have kids and have a life together and all that kind of stuff. The caveat to this, and the big kicker of all this, is that when Superboy crash landed on Earth, was ultimately adopted by John and Naomi Kent, again, he never really knew anything about his origin. And so the funny thing is, it's not like his powers came about by way of him just arbitrarily lifting up a tractor one day or something like that. His powers had to be activated. And the way this activation came out was that because of his love for Superman, Lori got him a Superman outfit to wear to this big costume party they were going to go to. And so once they get to this beach where all their friends are dressed up as, you know, superheroes and so on and so forth, and they're all just kind of hanging out, that a comet passes by. And when this comet passes by, it emits a kind of radiation that basically activates Superboy Prime's powers, and now he has all the powers of Superman, right? He's flying, all that kind of good stuff. And he kind of reminisces about this, right? He reminisces about his life with Lori when his powers activated, how much he cared about her, how much they were going to go forward, probably have a life together. And then suddenly Superman from the main DC universe popped up and said, there's an event going on called Crisis on Infinite Earths. We need your help. And ultimately this led to Superboy Prime basically, you know, joining the various superheroes facing off against the Anti-Monitor. And in the aftermath of that, Superboy Prime was locked away in a paradise dimension, or went to a paradise dimension, because of the fact that his home world had been destroyed. That Earth Prime was basically gone. Lori was gone. And the desire to get her back, the desire for all those things, basically came to fruition with him, leading to his current state. Now, if you want to know more about Superboy Prime, because we don't really have enough time to cover it all, I'll have the link to Infinite Crisis down in the description, where you can basically get caught up with all the stuff that takes place in between Superboy Prime going into the Paradise Dimension at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths and the start of this story, more or less, right? There's a few other things here and there, but they're not super important. But, you know, Infinite Crisis is the story that everybody references when they talk about Superboy Prime, right? That's like the must-read Superboy Prime story. And so because of that, all the other heroes who were here after experiencing their battles with Superboy Prime and knowing him as they know him, a lot of it kind of turns into, can we even really trust this guy? And while he's using his super hearing to kind of listen to what they're saying, at the end of the day, they're just kind of like, he's kind of like, all right, these guys still don't really like me and still don't really trust me, and for good reason. I mean, this guy broke out of the Paradise Dimension. He literally shattered the dimensional barrier, broke out of the Paradise Dimension, and just went on a warpath in the main DC universe. There's one point where he fought the Doom Patrol, the Teen Titans, Young Justice, and I think Justice League all at the same time, and like overpowered all of them, right? Like he beat them all and was like killing people and all kinds of stuff. He just become this really twisted and dark character, which was an amazing story the way it was done. It was so well written by Jeff Johns. But what you end up getting here is in this moment when he's kind of accepting and coming to grips with the fact that nobody really trusts him, none of the superheroes on Earth, that in reality, while reading about them through comic books in his own universe, that he came to respect and to adore, that, you know, in his loss of respect for him, for all these different guys when he was in the Paradise Dimension and the events that followed after, they don't see him as a superhero. And so he effectively became the villain, right? He became the one thing he never wanted to be when he was going through and reading comic books as a kid. And then suddenly he's met by the arrival of Krypto. And Krypto is see, this is the thing about Krypto. Krypto is amazing, right? The great thing about dogs, if you guys don't own dogs, the great things about dogs is that it really is just unconditional love. Dogs don't care about like your political beliefs. They don't care. They don't care about anything, right? All dogs care about is that you love them and you pet them and that you feed them and that you take them for walks and let them go have fun. That's all they care about. And they will love you unconditionally in return. And that kind of unconditional love from Krypto being basically shown to Superboy Prime is something that he hasn't experienced for a long time. And it kind of allows a little bit of a softer side to it, right? Where he starts talking about Krypto, you know, and it's like, man, I remember when I first read a story about you. Well, as he's petting Krypto, suddenly Superboy comes running up, right? He comes showing up on him, Connor Kent's stupid self. He comes showing up on him and it's just kind of like, leave Krypto alone, right? You know, like, you know, if you hurt him, I'll bash your brains in, right? Like, I'll destroy you. Now, here's the reason why this is dumb. The last time these two guys fought, Connor Kent got crushed, and not even by a little bit either. It wasn't even like a close fight, you know, where it's like, man, Connor Kent's holding on by a thread, guys. Do you think he'll pull it out? I don't know. Superboy Prime doesn't look like he has much left either. No. Superboy Prime had a full tank and was still hammering on Connor Kent, right? I mean, this guy never had a chance. Anybody who ever said that Connor Kent had a chance against Superboy Prime is lying to themselves. That's just the way that is, right? Superboy Prime was just that powerful. And so the reality of this is that the reason why they're all kind of here in this moment is because they're waiting on these 52 worlds to arrive that are all basically filled with different analogs of Superman, right? We saw this at the end of, I think, Death Metal number 4 or Death Metal number 5, but they're all basically just waiting on all these different heroes, or I guess, you know, twisted versions of themselves to show up so they can face off against them, destroy them, and then, you know, that's basically it. And so what you end up having here, this is a cool moment. What you end up having here is that in this moment, when Superboy Prime faces off against this one dark analog of Superman, that as he defeats him and then ultimately kills him, that he sees his world and then feels it change. And then his thought becomes, okay, so like, why? Like, why is this the case, right? If I kill this guy, right? Like if I kill this guy and take him out, then why does his world change? Initially, the superheroes think he's abandoning them, but he takes off into space with this kind of realization, and he says, just outside Earth's orbit, I see the last 52 worlds all lined up, right? The worlds that this bad guy created to destroy everything and everyone. The bad guy, of course, referencing the Batman Who Laughs. And he says, and then I wonder, can I use these? Can I change all of them if I kill this monster? Now, remember, the nature of the dark multiverse and presumably the worlds that the Batman Who Laughs created is that they're dark and twisted versions of essentially existing worlds or concepts. Remember, when it comes to the multiverse in DC Comics, there's only really 52 worlds that are ever established by DC, but there's an actual infinite number of worlds out there, right? We just only ever really see 52 of them. And so because of this, what we're kind of getting here is this idea that all the Batman Who Laughs basically did is take the idea of worlds that succeeded and then create in turn like dark multiverse versions of those, right? Where the worlds have twisted up and the worlds have been screwed up. The idea seems to be that there's an anchor point there, right? There's a genesis, a point by which that world changed. And if you basically destroy that, then what it's basically doing is pulling out the wrong Jenga piece at the bottom of a Jenga set at the wrong time. And the entire thing comes crashing down. It creates a cascading effect. And so if that Superman in that alternate reality is dead, then the world will shift back to normal, right? Presumably, the Batman Who Laugh's control over that world will be removed, and it'll go back to the way that it was supposed to be. Now, we're not told if it's like an automatic thing, right? If like, you know, this new Superman is introduced, and then like there's some magic that's done and the world is twisted up, and then like as soon as the Superman's killed, like the world just snaps back to normal and everybody's like, wow, what happened? You know, this is kind of crazy. We're not told if it's that way, or if it's because of the death of that dark character that the world can actually begin the process of becoming a better place. We're not really told if it's hard and fast or a little more, you know, nuanced in terms of how it works. We're simply just told that Batman Who Laughs, if he's destroyed, these worlds will seemingly continue to exist, but they'll basically function in a pretty normalized way. Now, one thing that I do also want to draw your attention to here is that we were basically told at the end of the last issue with Death Metal that there's only going to be one continuity after all this. It's seemingly going to be a crisis event with like a new Earth, right? One single universe. There's not going to be a whole bunch of different alternate realities out there. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But if that's true, then seemingly these worlds would have to be destroyed or removed somewhere along the line. It may just be one of these things where it's kind of like a blend between the multiverse and the new Earth concept after Crisis on Infinite Earths, where basically there's a multiverse out there, we just never explore it. We just never see it, right? We only ever focus on this one particular world, and that's basically it. It could be more metaphorical, that statement anyway, or it could be literal, right? Where every single world of the multiverse is destroyed and there's only one universe left. We don't really know. But what we do know is that we end up seeing Superboy Prime going directly after the Batman Who Laughs. And one of the comments we get right off the bat here is that the Batman Who Laughs kind of analyzes him and says, okay, there's more to you than I thought there would be. You're kind of a funny one here, right? This is a little bit different. You're kind of a funny one here. This is a little strange. And so the two of them actually end up fighting against each other. Now, something that happens here, and something that I'm not really entirely sure about how I feel, is that Superboy Prime is able to successfully go toe-to-toe with the Batman Who Laughs. Something to understand, the Batman Who Laughs is a version of Batman powered by basically Dr. Manhattan's powers. What this really tells us here is that Superboy Prime is equal to Dr. Manhattan in power, if not more powerful. And the reason why is because as they fight against each other, as they go toe-to-toe in this kind of bare knuckle, just knockdown, drag-out brawl, that there is some taunting, there is some intimidation going back and forth. And so far, Superboy Prime talking trash, the Batman Who Laughs talking trash to Superboy Prime, and Superboy Prime is literally getting the upper hand and absolutely pummeling this guy. And the Batman Who Laughs does what he can, right? And basically says, like, I can give you the world that you want, the world where Laurie's back, where everything you could possibly want would come true. But Superboy Prime rejects it, because at the end of the day, the big difference between Superboy Prime and the Batman Who Laughs is that Prime wanted to do the right thing, right? He wanted to get the heroes back to being traditional good guys. It just happened to be he went about it in all the wrong ways. The Batman Who Laughs just wants to make everything evil, right? He doesn't have any good intentions that he's implementing in the wrong way, the way Superboy Prime did. He just wants to cause chaos, death, and destruction, and just make everything really crappy, right? And so because of that, where you end up having Superboy Prime just pummeling the Batman Who Laughs, then suddenly out of nowhere, when he goes in for the killing blow, Krypto shows up, and he kind of tells Krypto, like, go, right? You can't stay here. And so that's when things get kind of bonkers, is because the Batman Who Laughs makes this comment to Superboy Prime: you can't destroy me any more than I can destroy you, so let me help you. And again, that's where he basically offers him this opportunity again, and really, like, even Batman Who Laughs shows him what this world could look like, right? That he could see this world where he is a member of the Justice League. He fights alongside the other superheroes. He's celebrated and accepted as a hero. The world sees him as everything that he always wanted to be when he was reading the stories about becoming Superman. But at the end of the day, he closes his hand and he says, no, I can't accept that, right? Because it's a world without his parents. It's a world without Laurie. It's a world without everything he ever wanted. And that's all he ever did want. That's the important thing to understand about Superboy Prime. When you reduce him down past all the Infinite Crisis, past pummeling the Earth superheroes, being stuck in the Source Wall, being locked away by the Green Lanterns and Science Cells, when you remove all that stuff, right, all that talk and all that jargon, and you reduce him down to his most base instinct, the entire motivation for everything Superboy Prime has ever done in the history of DC Comics is to get back to his home with his parents and Laurie. And that is what made Superboy Prime such an incredible and relatable character. That's what made him so awesome, is because who of us has not been thrust in a situation where we seemingly lose everything we care about, right? Sometimes you don't realize what you've lost until it's gone. Sometimes you realize what you're giving up as you do it. But regardless of the situation, you, me, everybody in this world is struggling with something. And in some way over the course of our life, we've had to give something up. We didn't want to, but we had to. And Superboy Prime represents that primal desire in all of us to go back to the way things were, right? To go back to that point in our life when things were at its high point, when we seemingly had everything we could possibly want. That's a strong urge. That's a strong feeling. And in his desire to get back there, Superboy Prime acted on that and seemingly got lost in his own cause, right? He ended up becoming everything that he hated, right? The one thing he never wanted to be, that's the thing that he became. What he sees here, this is seemingly the perfect life without the one thing that he wants the most, right? The one thing he wants the most, his parents and Lori. And as long as he doesn't have those, it's not a world worth living in. And so because of that, he literally balls up and says, okay, one last time, right? One last time. And he basically lets all of his dreams go, right? His dreams of being with Lori, his dreams of being back with his mom and his dad, right? Everything he's been holding on to over the course of his life, he lets all of it go. Now, here's the reality of this. He never would have been able to pull this off had he not done that, right? Had he not let himself go in that way. The reality is sometimes you just have to let things go, right? And just move on. As tough as it may be, and as hard as it may be, sometimes that's just what you have to do. And that's what he does, right? He takes everything he ever wanted, all the life he wanted to go back to, he balls it up and he just lets it go and just bam, punches into the Batman Who Laughs and shatters him. Now, by all standards of definition, all standards of measurement, Superboy Prime has seemingly destroyed the Batman Who Laughs. And it's kind of weird. It's a little strange to believe the death of the Batman Who Laughs doesn't happen in the main story. It happens in a tie-in. It's a little strange to believe that. If I'm being honest, I don't really think it's true. And here's the reason why. What you end up getting here is Superboy Prime, who basically just kind of crash lands, right? That all these worlds are, everything's more or less destroyed, right? That everything seems to kind of crack. These worlds look like they're breaking apart. They literally look like they're starting to kind of shake and just explode. They're basically coming to an end. And when that happens, Superboy Prime comes crashing down onto the earth, but no one knows that he gets there, right? No one knows that he arrives there. They don't even know that he was there facing off against the Batman Who Laughs. They don't know about that. Krypto responds to Superboy Prime and basically howls in the face of the fact that Superboy Prime is dead. And then suddenly he wakes up in his room. He just wakes up in his room reading a comic about his own death, right? He's reading this Secret Origin comic. I know it's a little meta, but that's what used to happen back in the day. Like back in the day with Earth Prime, they were basically reading comics here in the real world. So what you can do in order to make this easier on yourself, assume that we're reading a story about a kid who's like 5 blocks away. That's the easiest way to make this make sense, to kind of make it a little more tangible. But then Lori walks in, right? And for Superboy Prime kind of looking around, like he remembers everything up to that point, and then it's like waking up from a dream. He just snaps up in this place and he's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, how are you here, right? And how is like this dog, like how's Krypto here? Like how's this white dog here? How is any of this stuff here? This doesn't make any sense to me, right? It shouldn't be this way. Like this is a little strange. And his initial thought is that it's somehow a dream or that none of it's true. And like as he's walking with Lori, he starts talking to her like, do you remember that time we were on the beach and like the comet passed by and then I got my powers and I flew up into the sky? And she's like, yeah, I mean, that's a great story. It's a cool story that you love telling, but like, you're Clark Kent without powers, and that's okay, right? You're not Superman, right? And so what ends up happening is as this car is driving down the road, this kid goes running out into the street to chase a bouncing ball, which is a pretty typical situation, right? Kids just run into the streets chasing balls. And so Superboy Prime, or at least Clark, goes running out there to save this kid and ends up picking up the car, right? Now, if I'm being honest with you guys, I think this is all an illusion. I think it's all fake. I think that it's basically the Batman Who Laughs, who has this much power enough to create worlds. I have a hard time believing he'd be toppled that quickly by Superboy Prime. I think that what he's done is he's tricked Superboy Prime into believing that he's dead. And then in turn, he's basically just kind of conjured this world out of nowhere and then said like, this is the world you could have if you leave me be, right? That's basically it. Either that or he's just going to torment him again. Who knows? But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.